for those who don't know what Netflix is, let's welcome you to the new world here. It premiered on December 2nd. It's called The Reckoning. I didn't want to see it. I've had enough of Diddy, right? But I'm glad that I did. My 19-year-old son said, "Dad, you got to watch this documentary." I really learned a lot, and it's actually very well done. It's produced by rapper 50 Cent, whose real name is Curtis Jackson. And by the way, 50 Cent is also known in Zimbabwe as $300 million. There is footage in that documentary between Mark Agnifilo. How do you pronounce it, Geragos?
Exactly.
Yeah, is that right?
Mark
Yeah, right. Like, I couldn't believe it. There you see Diddy talking with Agnifilo. Let's play that clip, and then I want to try to get an idea of why the hell that happened. Okay, that's SOT number one.
Taking 8 nuclear bombs, you know what I'm saying, straight to the head. And I'm tired of going back and forth with y'all, with the lawyers.
That's just not true.
Okay, so no. Let me tell you something. Let me say this. I'm not a referee. So I'm gonna get off the phone right now. Listen to me. I'm gonna get off the phone right now, and I am gonna let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution. No matter what, no matter what nobody said. Let's just here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
All right, Geragos, how the hell does that happen? Why does that happen?
So look, I have, like I said, in full disclosure, I've repped Sean for what seems like decades, probably is decades. I've had famously many rather high-pitched discussions with him. I don't know the provenance of this tape, but I will tell you that aside from the fact that it shouldn't be in anybody else's hands, because as a defense lawyer, the most sacred thing in the world is that you have an unfiltered, absolute,
Yes.
no hold barred discussion with your client, especially there, because in retrospect, as you look at that, that is days before the arrest. And I know everybody is now talking about it after the fact because Mark Agnifilo, I've often said, did a masterful job in quarterbacking that trial and saved his life and his fortune. But this happened to me once 25 years ago. When I surrendered Michael Jackson, I had a private jet that was scrambled to take him to Santa Maria. The next day, somebody called me. I think it was Greta Van Susteren called me. She was still on CNN, said somebody's shopping it for $1 million. They had put a pinhole camera in the private jet of Michael and I on their way. I ended up suing and getting a judgment for $25 million, although some court of appeals justice reversed it, saying she didn't think that a camera of me or between me and a camera was worth $25 million.
I get that. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I did get a Superior Court judge to issue a restraining order because it's inviolate. It's the attorney-client privilege.
Of course.
So I don't know what happened here. I don't know how it got into the hands of Netflix. I saw the letter that Michael Tremonti, who's one of the best lawyers in this space, wrote for Diddy to Netflix, but it's a hard lift after it's already out there.
Let me ask you this, Matt. Do you think that his attorney, Agnifilo, knew that he was being recorded? And do you think there's some benefit to that video being out there?
I don't know, Mark Eiglarsh, but I can tell you there's no way, Mark. There's no way any lawyer is going to allow himself, for all the reasons Mark just said, to be recorded by his malignant narcissist client. Sorry, Mark, but who in their right mind records themselves talking to their lawyer about a case that's serious? So when I first heard about this tape, I was thinking, my God, was the lawyer actually in there? And it actually was heartening to me to know that Mark Eiglarsh was actually just on the phone. So I cannot even entertain the idea that any lawyer, especially not one as good as Mark Eiglarsh, would knowingly engage. And I want to add one more thing to that. I think he came off pretty good by pushing back against Diddy and saying, "Hey, man, that's not true." I haven't seen the whole documentary yet. It's something I want to watch during the holidays. But I got to tell you, that was outrageous. And of course, this is a waiver. When he is recording it or having some videographer And right, Marks, both of you guys, don't you think that when a criminal defendant is speaking to their lawyer and they're knowingly recording it, I'm pretty sure if there's a videographer in the room, that's going to constitute a waiver. It doesn't really matter because we're not talking about admissibility in a courtroom, but
Right.
that whole thing is on Diddy, not his attorney.
Let me ask you this, Geragos. One thing that was a little cringy was when Diddy, like so many of the high-profile clients we represent, give this rant like, "I've done nothing wrong. I didn't do anything." And then I was waiting for what Agnifilo said, and he pulled the, "No, you're right. Yeah," like he was with them, right? I'm wondering, is that how you do it? And then secondly, how do you feel about Agnifilo saying that to Diddy, and do you understand why he did?
So let me just frame this in terms of theoretical, because I don't want to ever be in a situation where
Right.
I'm compounding the work product violations
Right.
that's obviously there. But let me just say, separate and apart from this conversation, there are guys that I have represented over the years who I have either fired or showed them the door. Famously, in my office, we call it the perp walk, when I've perp walked the client out and won't speak to them for a period of time because the client will either suggest something or do something and won't listen. One of the big complaints I've said for years about the practice, the portion of, I'm known as a celebrity lawyer, which is almost like calling me a motherfucker. I mean, I hate that. I
Is
hate
it?
that term. I hate that term. And one of the reasons I
Really?
hate,
Why?
because I don't, most of my practice is not celebrities. Most
Right.
is really doing what I love, which is trial work. I hate being in the office. I hate dealing with to my point, what I call the nickel and dime, the 5 and 10% crowd, which is the managers, the entertainment lawyers, all the people who swirl around, the posse, as I call them, the the people who are notorious, infamous, famous, whatever you want to call them, because I'm generally, if it's a criminal defense situation as opposed to civil, you're parachuting in for an extremely kind of bet your career situation, bet your life situation, but it's a one-off. Unless I teasingly say, unless you're Chris Brown, then it's an annuity. But it's generally a one-off. I don't have the same motivations they do. They've got different motivations, and I can't let the civil or the money drive the criminal. The criminal needs to drive the itself and can't be worried about stepping on anybody else's toes. So it's a long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, I forgot the question already. What did I ask you? Are you a yes man? Are you a yes man to these celebrity clients like Agnifilo was? That's what I'm asking you.
And famously, I'm famous.
Yes or no would have been better, by the way.
I know, but my father used to say they didn't teach the care and feeding of celebrity clients in law school.
Okay, Matt, I still have no idea what the answer is, but I'll turn to you and say this is going to be litigated, I think. The fact that this footage made it onto this Netflix documentary, Netflix is saying we got it through lawful sources and we're going to continue to protect those sources. I want you to speculate. How the heck did they get this footage?
Oh gosh, I have no idea how they got it, but I can tell you this. I've worked for ABC News for several years now since I left the DA's office, and they've been great. I do some commentary and legal analysis for them. But the legal and standards department of ABC has got to be pretty close to what they put these things through at Netflix, because they have to be very cognizant at all times that they may face a civil suit, right, for defamation or anything else. And having gone through that experience, I've talked to all these guys on the phone. I've never actually met any of them. And I picture like they're the most hand-wringing, careful, paranoid guys, and they do a great job. And I'm not offering any criticism, but for them to air it, there are some really good lawyers, I'm sure, that Netflix ran this through that gave it the green light. And you're almost certainly right. There's almost certainly going to be some sort of litigation over it. But I'd be shocked if Netflix were to air this with any real doubt that they faced any true liability for it. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, Geragos, there might be some insight based upon what one of Combs's spokespersons said. A payment dispute between outside parties does not create permission for Netflix to use unlicensed private material. None of the footage came from Mr. Comer or his team, and its inclusion raises serious questions about how it was obtained and why Netflix chose to use it. So let's break that down. So a payment dispute. Okay, so they hired a guy, because Diddy obviously would know the videographer was in the room, to film him for one of his projects that I don't think ever, got made. And then, kind of like we don't pay the wedding photographer. So now what, they're free to take this video and use it in an Applebee's spot? Like, what's going on here?
Like I said, I have to dance around this. So I will just say if it results from a payment dispute, I probably would not want my spokesperson, whoever that was, going and saying that, because that's going to create issues in and of itself. If I'm Michael Tremonti, and I keep invoking Michael, but Michael is the one who wrote the letter to Netflix. Michael is also the one I just read this week. I haven't talked to him, but I read in Law 360, he's the one who, it appears, was suing Nexstar, who Matt and I occasionally will appear on. I think you too, Mark, which is they played something. Combs sued them, and it looks like Tremonti's going to get past the motion to dismiss there. So I would not underestimate Michael's ingenuity and legal acumen. If anybody can get it done, Tremonti can.
So the question is, will Diddy like this documentary? Apparently the producer, 50 Cent, thinks that he will. Let's go to clip 2 and hear what he thinks.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he may feel a different way about pieces and bits of it, but he knows the truth. I think he'll see the truth in it.
Yeah. All right, Matt, let me ask you. He specifically picked the network that you work for, ABC, because he knew that Diddy would see it in prison. Apparently, they show ABC in the prison. You think Diddy's going to like this 4-part in-depth documentary?
I'm going to go out on a limb and give that a big no.
Yeah.
Look, Mark Twain has a famous quote: never start a war of words with anybody who buys ink by the barrel. In other words, don't feud with the newspaper back in the day. And I think we need to add to that. And that's never get 50 Cent pissed off at you, because that man has mastered the grudge. And that look on his face just said it all. I actually read his biography, which was fascinating to me. He's a really, really smart guy who also has really good legal representation. I'm sure they ran through too. This is a payback for a long feud. And notice the one word that we're not hearing anywhere so far is defamation, because he's going to be, and Diddy is not, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Mark, but Diddy's not going to want to, he's not going to want to go down that road, because of course truth is an absolute defense. And I think that he's dodged that bullet due largely to Mark's daughter and Mark Eiglarsh putting together a really good defense on that case. I think Diddy would be incredibly stupid to try to go after them for defamation, because truth is a defense. We'll see another Diddy trial. Then again, Diddy's made a lot of bad decisions too. So
let's talk about the trial. Yeah, let's talk about the trial, Mark. There's a lot of discussion now based upon some feedback from some of the jurors who went public. I also wanted to watch this documentary for that reason too, because I want to hear what the jurors are saying. I'm curious if there's anything that stands out as surprising as to what these jurors are saying publicly that you didn't consider. For example, we're hearing about Capricorn Clark's testimony, who gave, sobbing testimony that Combs kidnapped her. After Cassie Ventura began seeing rapper Kid Cudi, and 2 of the jurors said it was difficult for them to believe the claim that she was forced at gunpoint. They thought Michigas, not true. They said they were confused by the situation. Did that surprise you? Did some of their other findings surprise you, Mark?
I'm in a very difficult situation.
I love it.
I was in the courtroom.
Yes.
I was deemed by Judge Subramanian as part of the defense team. I was there for jury selection. I think I had a little bit of input into jury selection. I was also scolded for being on my other podcast and saying that Diddy was being prosecuted by a six-pack of white women, and I was told that that was outrageous in any forum, even though I thought it was just a observation. No, none of this in the least surprises me. I will tell you that many of the things that I heard from those jurors, anybody who was a sentient being inside of that courtroom who actually saw the testimony, I think wouldn't be that far off from what the jurors said. That's the problem, by the way. I'll get back on, you're going to accuse me of not answering your question, but one of the problems with the federal district court is there are no cameras in the courtroom. So everything gets filtered, and it gets filtered by, it might be somebody who's got an axe to grind. You've got a docuseries by somebody who's got an axe to grind. And the problem is, if you're not watching it, if you're not in that courtroom to just see whether somebody is completely unbelievable in the sense that they're not credible, you know that. You've been there. Matt and I have done it in courtrooms ourselves where somebody who comes off credible on direct, by the time they're done with a cross, you're just shaking your head. And
well, that's what happened with Cassie, apparently, Matt. Are you surprised that the jurors felt that, okay, maybe there was some problems in the relationship, but she kept going back to him? They found that to be confusing. We kind of predicted that, right?
Yes. Look, the three of us have done a bunch of commentary on this case, including long before the verdict came out. And Mark had to be more careful than we did.
Yes, I did, because I had the judge telling me he was watching me. So
yeah, see, I wasn't there. My daughter, I don't have a daughter, but I was totally unconnected to the case. And you know what? This kind of restores your faith a little bit, because when you look at the jury's comments, it's exactly the way I saw it, Mark. This was the really horrific acts were all predicates for the RICO. The jury didn't disbelieve any of that, like the what we saw in the hotel, that horrible video. But the problem was, the whole thing was a bit of a round peg in a square hole. Like they took the position he was a bad guy, he'd done some bad things. The problem is that for sex trafficking, for example, there has to be a coercive, non-consensual element to it. The jurors nailed it, the ones that would have been interviewed on that, and it's kind of restores your faith a little bit in the jury system. Those were smart people who seemed to really get it. And that was one of the things that I think disturbed everybody about it, is that all of these people that came in to testify against Diddy were all these orbiters who were trying to advance their own career. And I agreed. It made no sense. This woman says she's kidnapped at gunpoint, and then I think it was 2 months later, she's out to dinner with him, and everybody sees him in paparazzi like that. And Capricorn Clark was the word that I've heard over and over again. And of course, none of us were in there, but it was performative. Their testimony is performative, and juries are very good at sniffing that out. And we called it. Mann Act, he's going down. But the rest of this are really problematic. And the jurors reflect.
So there's no such thing as a slam dunk. Everybody understand that, right? Let's move. Mark, I want to talk. We have a few minutes. I want to talk about the David.
Mark's going to accuse me of sounding like a defense lawyer. That's
I'm sure. I loved it. I didn't want to.
Who hacked Murphy? What happened?
Put a button in it. That was beautiful. Right. Let's note that.